You are listening to Whole Earth Radio. I'm your host, Rob Seaman. Today is Season 2, Episode 10, and I have a very special guest today. Stacey Littlefield is a master herbalist and the product formulator for REDD Remedies, a leading nutritional supplement company based here in Illinois. They make some great formulas. Stacey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. I wanted to start off with something a little topical because, natural products has been having this surge of interest from the masses, and certain things are getting popular. So when you formulated this new product, MenoWise, for menopause and various stages of menopause, I should say, uh,
Yep.
and we'll get into that. But you didn't, you always use adaptogens. I've noticed that, and in Ayurveda, adaptogens are rasayanas or tonics, but ashwagandha has been really popular. But you said that you specifically did not use ashwagandha in MenoWise, but you went a different route. Can you maybe tell us what you used and explain why you used that?
Yeah. So for MetaWise, we chose Shatavari extract. So Shatavari root is a Rasayana in Ayurveda. It has adaptogenic properties, and it is the main female tonic in Ayurveda. So it is the counterpart to ashwagandha, which is the main male tonic in Ayurveda. So if we look at the Ayurvedic tradition and the way that those cultures used those botanicals, they used Shatavari far more frequently for women than ashwagandha. They generally reserved ashwagandha for use in men as a male tonic. So, at REDD Remedies, we we put a lot of weight in science and modern technologies, but we have great respect for traditions and different cultures' traditions. I choose not to ignore thousands of years of texts and historical use. And because at the end of the day, while I may have expertise in herbalism, I'm not immersed in that culture. I don't have expertise in 5,000 years of history. So why would you ignore that? So we chose to go the route of tradition and use Shatavari because it's been used for women throughout Eastern systems of medicine for, millennia.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really great point. We were talking about herbal traditions, and I think it's so important that when we sort of eclectically pull things from these long histories and traditions, that we are mindful of the context in which their use originated. Because there's certainly a lot of wisdom, to not be ignored, to be benefited from and paid attention to.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to look at everything. There is great value in modern science, but there is also tremendous value in that history and tradition. And you can't put blinders on to that. You need to look at all of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one of the wonderful things about REDD Remedies formulas to me is they're so dynamic. You folks have really done an amazing job of, it's not just herbs or mushrooms, vitamins, nutraceuticals. There's a really wide range of modalities, ingredients, at work in these formulas. And I think that, maybe you could opine there, but I think that's partly why they're so effective. With something like MenoWise, you don't have just Shatavari in that formula. You have, and this is, the reason we're spotlighting this because it's brand new, but the Estro G 100, that specific blend of herbs, or I guess you'd say formulation, or within the formula has a lot of history of successful use, I understand.
Yeah, and that blend, so in you're right, we blend lots of different modalities because it is never about one thing, one modality, one method. It all has value, so we need vitamins, we need minerals, and we can use botanicals from around the world to really create these comprehensive formulas. And so with the Menowise and the Estro G100 blend, that blend is rooted in Korean traditional medicine. So these are Korean folk botanicals that have been used in that part of Asia and also in Japan. And then you see their use in the northeastern parts of China. So it, it has a benefit, and that's why we look at what the world has to offer instead of saying, okay, we're just going to do this kind of botanical, or we're just going to do this kind of nutrient, because they all have a place in a formula. And so over that historical folk use of these three botanicals, they now have human clinical research to show that that specific blend of those three herbs works synergistically to provide tremendous support for women throughout the menopausal transition, far more than something like black cohosh can do on its own. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get, too controversial, but I think it's fair to say that maybe men don't understand menopause sometimes as well as they think that they do. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. I also think it's a fair statement that women are not educated on what is happening to our bodies as we go through the menopausal transition. We're not encouraged to share our stories. We're not encouraged to talk about this openly. It's in my, I'm not opposed to sharing personal information, but in my cultural background, my mother's Japanese. We don't talk about those things. You just don't talk about those things. And that needs to change because even, if we just remove like the gender man woman thing, I mean, it's women don't know enough about the things that our own bodies are going to go through. We're not educated on those things. And on the flip side of that, the clinical research, the research that's done into women's specific or female specific issues is paltry compared to the amount of research that's done on male focused sides of things, like cardiovascular research, mainly focused on men. But within the last few decades, it's like, oh, wow, I guess menopausal women have heart attacks too. I mean, so, but like the mechanisms behind the role of that loss of estrogen and the impact it has on cardiovascular health is so, so small compared to the amount of research that's been done from the male perspective. So even the research side of things really needs to catch up so that we understand what women need, and how women experience these things is very different from how men experience it. So,
Yeah, I think the stereotypes, in a way, affect both men and women. Everyone focuses on hot flashes, and it's kind of a little joke. Oh, ha ha ha. It's a really, um, I don't know, oversimplified way to say, this is what women experience. Oh, they're going to be hot all the time because they're of a certain age. Ha ha ha. But they're actually what 10 symptoms of menopause that Menowise addresses.
yeah, and that's, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so true. Menopause is not, and the menopausal transition isn't about hot flashes and night sweats alone. That might be the most common menopausal symptom in the West, but it is not the most common menopausal symptom for Asian women, for African American women, for Hispanic women. I mean, there are over 85 reported symptoms of menopause. So hot flashes and night sweats are the same thing. That's one symptom out of 85. You know, when we look at the array of symptoms that women experience, you know, when women enter the menopausal transition, so perimenopause is the first phase of menopause. And when they enter perimenopause, they're not having hot flashes, they're not having night sweats. They're experiencing changes in their cycle. They're experiencing fatigue, an increase in PMS symptoms, anxiety, mood swings. That's what they're experiencing. By the time women start having hot flashes, they've probably been in perimenopause for 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
So it's this wide group of symptoms that a lot of women don't even realize those are symptoms of menopause. You know, the brain fog, the fatigue, the anxiety. You're not thinking menopause because we've been taught, oh, it's hot flashes. And that simply isn't true for so many women. And that's why it was really important to us at Red Remedies to find ingredients that were going to do more than just reduce someone's hot flashes. It's about so much more than that.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. And just working with herbs over the years, I think you have to learn more about the human body, but about female physiology, and for me, learning how like an herb, like let's go to some of the other women's formulas like Vitex, like Chase Tree, understanding or learning how that works. And I was working in a health food store many years ago, and progesterone cream became very popular. And every woman, that came in the door with, oh my gosh, even the hint of being premenopausal, we were just selling so much progesterone cream. And it really took an herbalist explaining to me, well, you know you could use herbs to have the body regulate its own hormonal production, and that might be a better first line of defense, or to try to restore balance, rather than applying a hormone to your
Right.
body, which is not very natural.
Right. And you're right. There are, I mean, and I remember those days where you just saw the progesterone cream explosion, but in even then it was like, how is that different from taking a pill that has hormones in it? You're doing the same thing. And you know, we want to strive to create formulas that help our bodies do what they do on their own. And like, the beauty of Vitex or Chase Tree Berry is that, it's working on the hypothalamus and the pituitary system, and you can affect multiple hormones at once. Because if you are altering levels of one particular hormone, that spiders out and affects levels of others, and so from our perspective, from an herbalist perspective, it is far better to gradually and progressively support balance over the long term. And I think that, that's one thing, especially, Americans, we want one pill and we want it to work overnight. And nothing works that way. Our bodies don't work that way. And things take time, balancing hormones, or, helping supporting women through those through the menopausal transition. We are not artificially raising or lowering levels. We're helping your own innate body systems come back into balance with one another. And so that doesn't happen in a day. It takes a little time. But over the long term, it's a better approach than, synthetically, artificially raising your levels of hormone that are supposed to be subsiding. That's what's supposed to happen in a woman's female reproductive cycle. It is natural. Why are we trying to reverse something that is supposed to happen during our reproductive cycle.
Yeah, and I wanted to maybe shift gears a little bit here, if we could talk about the other aspects of formulation and product um, production, with Red Remedies, and just the whole cramp bark thing. I mean, when Red Remedies launched these women's products last year, the intention was to have a PMS formula and PMS ASAP,
Yep.
and people, women in particular, really excited about this product. Even Deshay recognizes PMS is not a disease because it's something every healthy woman is expected to experience. But you ran into some obstacles, or one particular obstacle in sourcing, and I guess that was finding cramp bark that really is legit, right? I mean,
Yeah, it was one, completely unexpected, and two, incredibly frustrating and disappointing. So we tested 40 different samples of cramp bark, through very reputable labs that specialize in botanical ID. It's what they do. And all but one failed ID. All but one. Now, and these were finished powders or finished extracts of cramp bark. That's what failed. We were able to find biomass, like, the actual bark, or, the branches. We were able to find that through, again, very reputable wildcrafters out in North Carolina. But then the problem was, who's going to process this for us? Who's going to get it down? So it it's the botanical supply chain is pretty complex, and you've got one side that deals heavily in biomass, which is like the actual roots or the bark, and then you've got the finished product side, the finished extracts, the finished powders. And it was in that side of the supply chain where we found all of the issues. And again, it was unexpected because there's cramp bark all over the place, right? And but when we started diving in using appropriate methods for botanical ID, that's when they're like, we know this isn't cramp bark. We know this isn't the main adulterant, but that's all we know. We don't really know what this is. I mean, so it was incredible. And it took 18 months for us to find a material that would pass ID. 18 months. And it's like I said, incredibly frustrating, from our point of view, because we know there are cramp bark products out there, and I can't speak to other companies, preferred methods for ID. But what I can say is, for botanical ID, you want to use the most precise and accurate method possible. And that doesn't seem to be happening at a lot of supply houses. On the supply side of things, it's on us, the brand holder, to go back and say, hey, this isn't what you said it was.
wow. Yeah. And I mean, it really makes you wonder what's being sold out there on the open market. In our industry, we do have companies like Red Remedies that are reputable and do their own due diligence and third party testing, use the great quality labs, like you guys do. But there's this increasing number of kind of fly by night brands that you see, particularly online. It's been a lot of controversy around Amazon featured products where, some the brands in our industry have been testing products, that they bought off of Amazon, because
Mhm.
everyone wonders, I've never heard of this company. We know how the leading herb companies in the natural products industry that you see on the shelves of a health food store, we know how they do testing. They brag about it. They have been for years,
Right.
just like Red Remedies, because they're doing that top level of verification. But this no-name brand of cramp bark that someone is ordering off of Amazon, not to bash Amazon specifically. I'm sure it happens lots of places, but I think what it has to do is a loss of transparency with brands. And when you don't have that and you don't know how a brand um, researches and verifies their ingredients, it is kind of a crapshoot. You're kind of you're just taking a chance.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. You see these brands on Amazon. I mean, I've been in the industry since I was 19 years old. I'm 48. I've been in this industry for a really long time. And I see these brands pop up, and I'm like, who are these people? Who is this? Like, you've never heard of them. And then, I will start looking at their label and their supplement facts because that's something else I do for REDD Remedies. I'm involved in quality and some regulatory stuff. And so someone who is familiar with regulations like DSHEA, which by the way has been in place for 30 years. This isn't new information to people. These regulations have been around for a really long time. But you look at these supplement facts and I can tell like that's not the right species for what you're calling that plant, or you're not labeling plant parts. You're not, so when I see things like that, very basic things that we are supposed to follow on our labels, I I won't engage because if you don't know the bare minimum as a company, like yeah, there are laws and how we are supposed to label our ingredients. What else aren't you doing? What else don't you know about this industry and the issues that we have in the supply chain? We don't know anything about these companies, who they are, where they get their materials. Um, I guess they make good ads. I mean, I don't know.
They are adept at selling online, I think is what we know about some of these brands. They've figured out the marketing part of it. And I think it circles back to, what you were saying about ashwagandha. Why is ashwagandha popular? It's popular because it filtered into the masses, the mass market and everything through social media, and it's trending. But when you and I are about the same age, as we came up in this industry. I'm a little bit older than you, point of clarification, but when we came up in this business, and people still do, it's still there, it's not gone, but people like Dan, the founder of REDD Remedies and owner of Sunrise Health Foods, have taken pride in partnering with brands and really partnering, as a real partnership, not just putting it on the shelf, but in having transparency and accountability and things like you're talking about, respecting how the proper use of things, and not just, oh well, this is popular, we better sell more of it. And I think we're losing some of that every day that we go further away from the traditions that we have, in this country of natural products. There is a long history of educators and people bringing knowledge, not just selling a product, but giving you real insight. And I think we're losing some of that as we move more towards a fast-paced, flash in the pan sound bite. This is it. This is the miracle cure for today. Take this. But what are you eating? What
Right.
is your lifestyle like? Have you looked at your chronic stress levels? I know REDD does a lot with addressing stress because it's such an underlying factor in so many conditions. You're not just relieving a symptom. This isn't green allopathy. We really want to get to the core, the root of the whole person. And I think the more we go to really quick drive through internet solutions, the less we're going to have that real connection to natural health.
Yeah, it's really it's so frustrating to try to cut through that noise. And there is such, especially, social media, Amazon, there's such a trying to figure out a way to say this, such a loss of expertise and expert voices. They get drowned out by the flashy, oh, this is the greatest new gummy, even though we can't, you have to take 20 at once to hit a therapeutic dose of anything. But yes, gummies are the way. I mean, I know they taste good, but it's candy. Can we just say that? It's candy.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I know it's convenient. I know they taste good, but two apple cider vinegar gummies is sugar. It's not anything. And is so frustrating to try to get people to understand that just like with medicines, there are therapeutic doses of botanicals. There are certain extracts that have been shown to be superior to others, like because when you're extracting, sometimes water is fine, sometimes alcohol is better. Sometimes you want a supercritical extract if that's the way we're going to go. And there's a huge difference between, 200 milligrams of a shatavari root extract and 15 milligrams of shatavari root powder. Those are not equal in any way, shape, or form. So there's so much education that used to happen on the health food store floor that we cannot replicate in 90-second sound bites.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I respect REDD Remedies so much is your commitment to education. It's such a core value at the company, and you and Dan have been so willing to train the smallest mom and pop health food store. And I think that, obviously both of you, that's part of your core beliefs, what this industry is about. I mean, I could point out other things, being a member of Infra early on, the company, and, Sunrise, and, the commitment to health food stores being where we expect people to go for these things, having a focus on that at REDD. And I think, it's part of the equation that we know people are more likely to get full spectrum solutions. They're more likely to have somebody say, hey, how much sugar are you eating? Like, what are you eating? I mean, I tell my story, I won't give you the long version, but, it wasn't until I walked into a health food store in my teenage years and was experiencing health challenges that an herbalist, said to me, what are you eating? Well, I eat at Burger King every day. What do you mean? Like, no one had ever asked me that. And it was like, oh, yeah, stop doing that. Okay. I mean, no one had ever said that to me in a doctor's office, in school. And here I am having to go to Friends of the Earth, it's no longer there back home. But yeah, I mean, just the tradition of health food stores being a learning center, like a community health center. It really does continue, but I think it is disrupted by people walking, and I see it every day. I'm in stores almost, and I see somebody walk in with their phone, and it's like, do you have this?
Yep.
And it's like, no, no, this is backwards. You're supposed to come in here looking for what you should buy. You don't look for it online and then go find it in the store. But they are not part of that tradition of being educated. But it happens one person at a time. When that person comes in and someone takes a deep breath and they go, well, no, we don't carry that product, but we have something better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I said, there's so much information, and I know that there are so many people who are so desperate for solutions. They're suffering with these conditions. And what makes me honestly angry as someone who's been in this industry for so long, as someone, as a master herbalist that's taken the time to learn and immerse myself in all of this. What makes me so angry is that I know that the things that are being offered are not meaningful. They're not going to help. especially on, online, where I can read a label and be like, that's probably not even elderberry, and you can, but so many people like, and so that causes people to doubt what our industry, to lose faith in our industry. Um, and like I said, it makes me angry, because we have value. We have helped thousands and thousands of people. I've seen it in, at Sunrise Health Foods from the time that I was, working on the floor, when I was a rep working for other companies, and I saw it with my own eyes. And now it's like, oh yeah, take castor oil for everything, right? It's a cure-all. Like, no, it's a laxative. So buy some toilet paper with that castor oil, but yeah, it's stopped there, so it's really frustrating, which is, and it, that's why we try to create as meaningful a formula as we can, without creating more burden for people. Like, instead of buy Shatavari, buy this herb, buy that herb, buy that herb, we try to put comprehensive formulas together, uh, to not only help customers save a little bit of money, because to buy all those things individually is way more than buying the formula, but also to make things a little easier. Like, we understand that people are being inundated with so much information, some of it grossly inaccurate. So we're trying to do the work for them. And with our knowledge and our expertise and our deep, deep roots in this industry. Dan grew up in a health food store. His family started Sunrise in 1961. We didn't just start. We didn't just appear on Amazon or wherever. Like, we've been doing this our entire lives. So it's really important to us at Red Remedies to create formulas that are real solutions for people, and take the guesswork out for people.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's great point you make there. Um, when products are inferior or just some fly by night thing and people try them, they don't go, well, maybe this product, they don't necessarily have the tools to evaluate, well, this, I didn't pick a good one, maybe the ingredients weren't sourced well. What it goes back to is because I have to tell you, the overarching paradigm in our country is pharmaceutical. So the default is, well, I should probably go to the doctor and get some HRT. So if they buy a substandard product, I keep saying online, but they really could, it could be anywhere. And mass market is just as guilty. And then that product doesn't work. What they assume is that the entire modality, the entire world of natural, that stuff doesn't really work. You really need to go to your doctor and give whatever he recommends to you. And I'm not anti-doctor, but I think our over reliance on pharmaceuticals, well documented. There's some great writers in our, corner of the world that have just written volumes. Even someone like Michael Murray, has just got whole books on alternatives to alternatives to pharmaceuticals that are natural. And I think people's over reliance on pharmaceuticals is really the main issue. It's something that's really strong and has potential side effects, should be your last resort. It should be, not the first thing you go to, or the second when you buy a lousy natural product and it doesn't work. Okay, I'll just go the pharma route. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and there's a time and place for everything. I'm not anti-medicine or like anti-doctor, like you said. There is a time and place for everything. If you break your leg, don't come hobbling into a health food store. Go to the hospital. I mean, there are really serious conditions that require dramatic interventions, but there are things like menopause, PMS, things like, with fatigue, and even certain thyroid issues, where we can start on the natural side and get results. And again, everyone's looking for a pill, a pill, a pill. And but you do have to take a couple steps back and think about, when's the last time I went for a walk? What did I eat today? How much sugar do I consume in a day? It's you all of it plays a role, like all of it. And I know that there's always going to be outliers. Well, this guy ate McDonald's 3 times a day his entire life. He's fine. Okay. That's great. That's not normal. Like that's not usually what happens. So,
And is he really fine?
yeah.
Maybe he feels fine because I think the body, the human body is amazingly resilient and
Yeah.
adaptive in a lot of ways. It tends to try to reach homeostasis no matter what you throw at it. Yeah, people can, you know, smoke 2 packs a day and drink hard liquor and you don't fall over dead. But I mean, there are consequences for our actions, and I think no matter what your lifestyle is, the older you get, the more that you see it and you feel it. It's just the natural process of aging. And, there was this idea at one point about anti-aging in our industry and how you can sort of outwit the natural process or outsmart it or outrun it or something, out supplement it. But healthy aging, I think, is much more realistic and much more of a healthy way to look at it, because we're all going to get older as long as we stay alive. That's part of the process. But can you have better quality of life throughout the time that you're alive? You have better chance of maintaining control of your day-to-day life.
Right. And that's, like I was saying earlier about, the menopausal transition, that is supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen. So the answer isn't to try to reverse that or avoid it by artificially putting estrogen back in your body, because it's not supposed to be there. I mean, that's why we saw so many issues in the Women's Health Initiative. That's why they stopped those studies, because the HRT studies, they, were like, oh, um, okay, we're actually causing problems in women. We're causing health issues in women. But we can do things to give, women going through menopause a greater quality of life, greater, so that they can, appreciate and find joy in that stage of their lives, because it's not all doom and gloom. It's not the end of who we are. It's a reinvention of who we are. We're reaching a time in our lives where, we're not having, children, or if we do have kids, they're getting older, and that time is really ours. So why do we want to deprive ourselves of something that is supposed to happen? Our bodies are built to go through this, but every woman's journey is going to be unique and different. And for some women, they have a really hard time. Well, we can help them. We can help them lessen those issues that disrupt their daily lives, the brain fog, yeah, the fatigue, the vaginal dryness, the joint pain that just starts out of nowhere. We can help women just smooth that out, not reverse it. We don't, we want things to progress naturally as they're supposed to. Yeah, that part just never made sense to me. Like, we are supposed to be losing estrogen. This is what is supposed to be happening. Of course, there's going to be negative consequences to artificially putting back something that isn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, and I think the idea of the wisdom of nature really truly deeply being what we're trying to tap into, not just with a pill, but like you said, lifestyle, how much sugar are you eating? Are you getting enough rest? These are the kind of things you only hear in a health food store. And people, it's almost kind of a running joke, where it's like, you're getting held accountable at the health food store. Well, wait a minute, before I sell you this remedy, let's talk about you and what you're doing. And people are like, well, I eat well. Everyone's, I eat well. I mean, but I think the more that you explore different aspects of what might be, hidden food sensitivities, all kinds of things that folks can explore that may help them on their journey. Women who find that they have food sensitivities will probably find better overall health, and it may not correlate one to one with hot flashes, or any other symptom of menopause. But I think when you feel better, you feel better. And the more you're taking this deeper holistic approach and asking deeper questions, rather than just looking for a band-aid for things, whether it's natural or synthetic, I think it's the approach that matters almost as much as what you use.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned this earlier, but chronic stress has such an impact on our overall health because it is so disruptive to the ways that our bodies nourish us or rejuvenate us. It's so disruptive to our digestive systems. It is so disruptive to healthy sleep. And those are like the two basic ways your body's, providing nutrients and getting things, to different parts of the body. And then when we sleep, our bodies are still working. The liver, in traditional Chinese medicine is said to do the most of its work between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. So we're supposed to be sleeping, and so many of us don't get a restful night's sleep, and stress has a lot to do with that. When we look at women, like if for issues like IBS, that is a stress connected issue, and it affects mostly women. It is, and there are plants that we can use, like the adaptogens, to help our bodies adapt to all of these stressors, because stress isn't just I have a deadline, I'm late to pick my kid up from school. It's the toxins in the air. It's the toxins in our water. It's the fact that I'm probably going to sit in front of my laptop for 9 hours today. That's also stress. I mean, it's our survival mechanisms have not caught up with the way that we live, but we can look to natural medicines and botanicals like shatavari, like reishi, like Panax ginseng or schizandra. And those plants can help us deal with those stressors. And like you said, our bodies will do whatever it takes to stay in homeostasis. And if that means robbing from one to keep our blood pH exactly where it needs to be, because that's what we need to survive, it will absolutely do that. And adaptogens can help take those costs down from like $1 to a penny. So it's not as impactful on our bodies. But again, you've got to use those in conjunction with as good food choices as you can make. I mean, because, let's be honest, not everybody has access to healthy food. Not everybody has access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So you have to do the best you can with what you have. You can't rely on, any supplement alone, to kind of reverse all, the poor food choices or the lack of activity. It's a part of the bigger picture, and at REDD Remedies, we'll be the first people to tell you that, like, we provide solutions, but they're a part, just a part. They're not the only answer.
Well, I remember something. Yeah, that's such a great, and it's why Red is part of the solution. And part of the, I think, the health food movement that really makes all this work. I remember Dan saying that in general, Red Remedies formulas presuppose that the person is taking. I hope I get this right: a multivitamin, a probiotic, and an omega-3 supplement. We're going to assume it could be some other broader spectrum omega, but let's be honest, it's omega-3 that Americans are missing, not omega-6 or even 7 or 9. But I think that statement right up front and the company taking that approach, you make great formulas that really target body systems, and they're really smart formulations. Always really admired that. But there's this nutritional foundation. Yes, food. Yes, sleep. Yes, lowering your stress level, however you do that. But you got to have this nutritional foundation to make it all really work in the body.
Yeah, and we do make those assumptions when we're formulating because we can't fit everything a person needs for any given issue in a single pill. It would be the size of a watermelon. I mean, it
It's a
just you
big pill, right?
yeah, right? You can't do that. And if people started with the basics, the foundations, a good multivitamin mineral that you get at a health food store, um, a good broad spectrum multi-strain probiotic, and a good essential fat like omega-3s, you may not need our stuff. And you know what? That's okay. That's great. But we're here for the people that need really specific, condition specific formulas. But if I am ever in the occasion where I'm speaking to one of our customers, I will always ask those questions. What multiple do you take? Do you take a probiotic? How much fiber are you eating? And sometimes it would be better for those individuals to make those changes first. So you're getting a broader benefit across the entire body instead of just looking at, healthy blood pressure levels in a formula just for healthy blood pressure levels. Anybody with cardiovascular issues, let's look at your diet first. Let's look at your activity levels first. Let's start there because that can have a dramatic impact on their overall health and wellness. And then we'll come in and fill the gaps as we need to. But we're not always the place where people should start. And I think that's reflective of the fact that Dan grew up in this industry. He grew up in the aisles of a health food store. So he understands and appreciates that there are other things that should be done and other changes that people can make that would have a great impact on their overall health and well-being.
Yeah, and it's, like when I got into the industry just as a consumer and just experiencing things, one of the first things I discovered was macrobiotics. And, as I talk about, you mentioned pH balance, just it's one of the major regulatory mechanisms in the body, but it gets discounted. I hear the sort of, oh, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, but we discounted that a long time ago. I'm like, well, science did not, but I started off by reading, some of those wonderful Michio Kushi and Giorgio Sawa and Michio and Evelyn Kushi and their whole family, um, and you talk about good quality food, being accessible. I mean, brown rice, not expensive. You can you make your own miso, but miso can go a long way. It doesn't have to be really expensive. Um,
Right.
Things like vegetables, you shop around, and I mean, I think eating well would be more accessible to me if the philosophies of different ways to eat well, the kind of simple, basic, natural foods diet that was even back in the 90s, was like, we're leading with this.
Yeah.
Eat like this, eat real food, don't eat that garbage. And I don't know, I feel like that has been largely replaced with trends, it may be paleo, keto, whatever it is, or just completely sort of lost because in a like 30 short years, I mean, the Kushi Center is gone. I mean, all of that work the
Mm-hmm.
whole family did. I mean, and macrobiotics was huge. And today, I mean, people forgive me if I'm just not seeing it, but it doesn't seem to have much of a presence um, in the industry or really in the world. And that's just one, aspect. Macrobiotics. There's lots of, other approaches and aspects of that, but just the food approach and the back to basics sort of here, this is natural healing, this is natural health. I don't know, it seems like it's kind of getting lost.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. You have all these trendy diets and, where we're like removing complete like food groups, like, and I will apologize if I offend anyone in your audience, but like
It's okay.
just eating meat and animal products and like removing like plants from your diet, that's don't you can't get certain antioxidants from animal flesh. I mean, like there are certain nutrients that are just they don't appear there. And it's we are supposed to eat a varied diet. We're supposed to eat multiple types of food. And when I'm talking to my friends and what diet should I do? Just eat real food. Just eat real food, actual food, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, eat some lean meats, don't eat red meat 7 times a day, 7 times a week. Put some fish in there, if you can eat that. If you're vegetarian or vegan, French fries are not a food group. My teenage daughter like went on this like I'm going to be vegetarian, and I'm like, what are you eating? Spaghetti noodles and French fries? Because that's not being a vegetarian. but it's but that's what happens. I mean, people just they and I don't know where this stuff comes from, but it's we have access to a lot of different foods, and while there might be isolated cultures around the world who do subside that way, it's because they have to. It's not because they necessarily choose to. Like if we look at the Inuit in the Arctic, well, of course they're eating mainly animals. There aren't plants growing on
Right.
glaciers.
They live in the Arctic.
So
That's
they eat what they have access to.
right. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that it's a great diet for everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And everybody's different and everybody will find their personal diet, but you won't find it if you're not looking. And I think, you know, um, this is one of the great things to me about Red Remedies, health food stores being part of a bigger picture solution. So I feel like the fact that really most of the time to get a Red Remedies product, I'm going to walk into a store and, maybe I'm old fashioned. Well, there's no doubt that I'm old fashioned, but I mean, I think I really hope that's what I would wish for people who are just coming into natural medicine, that they would maybe take the time to go into some of these stores, one, to buy a better quality of food than what they may have been eating if they're not doing that. So many people are just eating out of restaurants these days. DoorDash is super popular. And, I don't get me started on how you're not eating real food if you don't know what's in it, and if you didn't prepare it, and you don't have strict guarantees, you don't know that they're not using trans fats and all kinds of preservative laden stuff. When you go into a natural marketplace, you have more of those kind of guarantees, and you can tap into that. You can start eating better at home. There so many aspects of this, but I think it's a positive um, cycle when you start asking those questions. But people have to be challenged in that. They have to be in an environment where someone brings that to them, because in the click and purchase world, we're people are getting really easy answers that are not, as we're saying, often not really accurate.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is as simple as taking a pill. Very few things are. Now, there are some conditions, like if you're a type 1 diabetic, you need insulin, you take insulin, but for most people, like you said, there are so few barriers to overcome to like buy something online. It's all about the ease of purchase, the ease of purchase. Um, that there are no questions being asked where someone's going to stop and think, oh, well, yeah, maybe I'm not sleeping well because I have no physical activity whatsoever during the day. Um, and it's, yeah, I don't know. It's really frustrating. And we at Red Remedies, we do everything we can, like you said, you know, educating health food store retailers, trying to do as much outreach on the consumer side to help people understand who we are and where we come from. And we are not solely focused on selling products. We are focused on helping people feel better so they can live better lives. Um, it's it's people before profits. That's who we are. I mean, you know, so we were out of stock on one of our best-selling items for months because we would not compromise on the quality of raw material. So we chose to instead lose money 4 months.
Unheard of.
Yeah, instead of putting out a product we knew would be inferior and not meet our quality standards. Um, that's who we are as a company.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place, to stop for now. I'd love to have you back on. There's so much we could talk about. We could probably talk for hours here, but
Yeah.
I really thank you so much for your time today and for giving us some of these important insights, in particularly into women's health, but for everybody. I think it's just such a needed perspective.
Well, thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to speak to your audience. I've had a wonderful time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stacey. Have a great day,
All
and
right.
we'll talk again.
Okay.